ClancyPasta presents I'm an EMT. This call still haunts me. Written by Justin Tuts. We'd gotten the call to head out one evening. Multiple, in fact, about a man falling at a front yard barbecue, seemingly losing his breath and passing out on scene. Knowing how dire the situation could be, we ran to the ambulance and sped down the road to the house, arriving 5 minutes later to a scene of frenzied spectators and the man's wife crying as she sat on the ground next to him. It's quite amazing the level of detail the brain picks up during traumatic times. You may take notice of the strange rocks that litter the ground, the way the grass sways in the mid-afternoon breeze, or the clothes of an onlooker. When Harold Williams died, I noticed the way the sun was casting its final rays across the open street, warming the backs of the spectators as we performed our inspection of him, ensuring he was dead and not in a state of arrhythmia. I noticed the pale blue of his lips as they blended slowly into the ever-paling and ever-cooling white of his face, a few shades softer than the piercing blue of his eyes. Suffocation, no doubt. Although the noises of the world were blurred to me, I noticed his wife wailing her final remorseful goodbyes, screaming it wasn't fair, that there weren't signs of anything. He simply dropped. Her tears traced down her elegant smooth face, dripping onto both her baby blue dress and the dark asphalt below. I noticed the other EMTs moving to the ambulance to grab the heavy black body bag that would be the first case for Harold's now deceased body. Their movements slow and deliberate as they carried themselves, losing themselves in the task so as to not think about the life we'd lost on this night. I noticed police moving onto the scene, anxious to begin their questioning while witnesses still lingered and the body was still fresh. They moved with purpose. Their forensic counterparts moved slowly, their eyes scrutinizing every detail of the scene as though it would give them a better answer than anyone present could. I knelt over Harold and was moving my hand slowly up to his eyes, eager to close them so they could no longer look unfocused into the orange sky above. My eyes caught movement, however, the flickering movement of his tongue and his mouth, a remnant muscle spasm or something else. My hand stopped as it moved again. I moved my hand over to his mouth and pulled it open with my thumb and forefinger. There was nothing there, yet the tongue moved yet again. Using my other hand, I grabbed the tip of his tongue and moved it up towards the roof of his mouth. A gasp escaped as something gave way, and I realized why his tongue had been moving. The gasp turned into a scream as thousands of spiders flowed out of his throat and onto the streets surrounding us. I heard screams from the spectators and a horrified wail from his wife. I scampered to my feet, fear clutching my heart as I stared in abject horror at the scene unfolding in front of me. The spiders continued in their stream from the man's mouth, flowing on the ground around him. They moved as a solid mass. By now, spectators were screaming as they ran, and his poor wife was backing up slowly, still crying as she watched the arachnids flee from their host. They were large by standard means, not as large as tarantulas, but not as small as a common house spider. They had shiny black bodies that shimmered in the light and had an oily texture. Nausea rose in my throat, and I could feel the bile beginning to rise. I threw up several times before my fellow EMTs were able to calm me down, but they weren't close when it started. They didn't see the way that the spiders pulled out his tongue as they ran. They didn't see how some of them were covered in blood and viscera, as if they'd been digging through his body to escape. They didn't see his abdomen sinking as they flew out of his mouth. The rest of the day kind of blurred by. My mind was unable to get over the scene I'd witnessed, and the fear had still clutched in my chest. It's by far the strangest call I'd ever received, and I never got any answers about it. A lot of times you don't hear about if your patient made it or not. You drop them off and away you go. With deaths, it's even fewer. They go to the morgue, and you don't hear about the autopsies. Looking back now, the familiar question enters my mind once more. How did they get there? I suffer from face blindness, and I think my family has been replaced. Written by Yuna-cunn. I'm writing this from a neighbor's house. I've been diagnosed with prosopagnosia, or face blindness, just several months ago. I've had head concussion while climbing a tall stepladder, and I've been unable to distinguish a single face since. I live in a 2-story house in a suburban neighborhood located in a town I'd rather not name. With me lives my parents, 2 sisters, which I'll call Susie and Judy, and my grandmother. I first noticed the subtle changes around the house after my family attended a party at a friend's house 5 blocks from where we live. I'd fallen ill at the time and wasn't in a party mood, so I decided to stay home and quench my thirst for binging on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. My parents had no problem with my plans and decided to leave me home. After various warnings and precautions of locking up and avoiding answering the door to strangers, they left for their party, leaving me alone with a cabinet full of snacks and 3 full seasons of my favorite show. After several joyous hours of binging and eating tubs of popcorn, I heard a knock on the door. Strange, I thought as I got up, thinking it might be my folks coming back from their party. Why didn't they use the spare keys? My dad has a copy that he keeps to himself. I wondered as I stepped up to the door to peek through the eye hole, and surely I counted 5 people who fit the description of my family. So I opened the door and let the crew in, then walked back to the couch and sat down to continue the episode I had paused on. The first thing I thought was strange was when my dad removed his shoes in the doorway. My family tends to do that, but not my dad. To him, his shoes collection is more valuable than his car. But I brushed it off as he was tired from the party. My mom then proceeded to ask me to go to bed as it's getting late. Mind you, I am 26 and currently don't have a job. What? Don't you have college tomorrow? My mom asked. No. Mom, are you okay? My brows furrowed in confusion. My mom laughed it off and held her head. I must have drank too much. I need to lay down, she chuckled as she walked upstairs. I felt weirded out as I've seen my mom drunk, and this definitely isn't the way she acted, usually. But I thought she must have had too much tonight. My sisters didn't really talk to me when they came back. They just went upstairs and made too much noise in doing so. My grandma just stood in the doorway, looking lost and confused. I put my computer down and got up, walking up to her. Hey, Gran, are you okay? I ask as I smile at her. Could you walk me to my room? I feel a little tired, she mumbled quietly. She did look really tired, so I walked her to the guest room right next to the living room, where she stays. The moment she walked into the room, she gave it a quick scan, as if she hasn't been there in some time. She then proceeded to walk to the bed and sit on it, staring down at the ground. Hey, Gran, need some help? Want me to help you change? I asked her, now a little worried. Oh, no, I just need a rest. Go to bed now, she said, as she comically yawned. Oh, and shut the light, dear. She smiled at me, her unfamiliar face meeting mine. Okay then, night, Gran. Don't forget your meds, okay? I smiled back. "Oh dear, I think I misplaced my medicine again. Would you find it for me?" she asked. That is not like her at all. Again. She never misplaces her medicines. "Have you checked your nightstand drawer?" I asked, walking up to her and opening it for her. She looked down and let out a little gasp. "Oh, there they are. Thank you, sweetie," she grinned, patting me on the back. "No problem, Gran," I mumbled, walking out of the room and shutting the door. I then went upstairs and walked into my room, preparing myself for bed. The event started happening when I went to bed. I was laying there, reading some memes and chuckling to myself quietly, trying not to wake the sleeping party people near me, when I heard a creak outside my room. I got up and walked to the door, quietly opening it. I was shocked to see my sister Judy standing just a few centimeters away from my door. She wasn't standing. No, she was in a sneaking position, one you'd see a cartoon thief in. That froze me in place. I stared at the face I didn't recognize for minutes, before she scurried back to her room, shutting the door behind her. I was still standing there, confused as to what I just saw, and then I noticed it. On the staircase, lying on her belly, was my grandma. I gasped quietly, jerking back a little. She was lying there, smiling widely at me in the dark. She looked as if she was trying to blend in, her hands staged in front of her while her chin rested on the first step of the staircase. My heart fell to my gut. I couldn't breathe. My grandma never did this. The shock, coupled with the new face she has now, kept me frozen. My grandma then did something that made me wet my pants. She put her finger to her mouth and hushed me, then pointed to my right, my parents' bedroom. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. My mind kept refusing, but my head had a mind of its own in that moment. I screamed louder than a fog siren. The thing pretending to be my mom was stretched from the doorway of my parents' bedroom almost to mine. Our rooms are almost 20 feet apart, yet there she was, stretched and twisted. Her torso was like an old tree branch. Her face was warped into an ear-to-ear grin, her eyes sunken and dark. That was it for me. I shut my door and locked it. I went to my bedroom window and climbed out, then proceeded to run to my neighbor's house. While running, I remembered my dad. I turned around to look for him and saw him in my bedroom's window, smiling and waving. He was in there the whole time, preying on my fear. I called the cops. They are going to investigate those people and get back to me as soon as possible. I'm staying with the neighbors for now. They gave me a couch to sleep on with some blankets and pillows. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. I want to give a huge thanks to all of my supporters over at Patreon and YouTube memberships. Your support makes these narrations possible, and I appreciate it a ton. If you'd like to join these lovely ghouls, you can head on over to my Patreon at patreon.com/ClancyPasta, or click the join button below to become a member. And if you'd like creepy cool shirts, make sure to head on over and check out my official merch store for some awesome tees, hoodies, stickers, and more. Alright. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great night. Cheers.